Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Climate Reality Project DFW Chapter July 15th meeting. It's good to see everybody. It's been a hot summer here. So welcome. The first thing I'd like to do is I see one or two names that look vaguely familiar, and maybe one or two names that haven't been here in quite some time. If you would like to introduce yourself maybe in a minute or two, we'd be very happy for you to do that. You can just turn your microphone and video on if you wish, or you can do it through chat. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kevin Overton. I'm actually been a member and formerly was participated quite a bit in this organization. I went to the training in Atlanta back in, was it 2019, I think? Wow. Anyway, I'm a senior environmental coordinator for the city of Dallas, and I have an announcement that I'll make later on talking about an opportunity that I think you guys need to know about. But I'm glad to be back. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I also see a lot of faces I don't recognize. So hello to everyone that I don't know, and hello to all my old friends.
Kevin, it's good to see you again. We've missed you, and thank you for your good work with the city of Dallas. Hopefully we can help you out. Eleanor, did you want to say hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm from Fort Worth. I just did one of the trainings this spring. And this is the first time I could fit in joining in on something. So I'm very glad about the work that you're doing, and I hope I'll be able to participate.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Eleanor. Did you go to the Inflation Reduction Act training or a different one?
No, that one.
Okay, good.
I'm on a environmental task force for the Episcopal Church in the Diocese of Texas. And that, I think, is somebody forwarded that notice to me. That's how I found out about it.
Wonderful. Very good.
Thanks.
Anybody else relatively new or haven't been here for a while that would like to say hello? Monica?
Hi, yes, I'm relatively new. I've not been able to hop on any of these calls because they're on Saturday mornings. I work for Starbucks, and I did the Climate Reality Challenge in Houston, the 3-day conference. And so that's how I learned about you all.
Right. Yes, that Climate Reality in Houston was wonderful, that we were focusing on the Cancer Alley there on the Gulf Coast. That we had some really wonderful speakers. Anybody else want to jump in that hasn't been here for a while or is newish to us? Say hello. Okay, well, good. Let us launch into the agenda, which I'll keep pasting into the chat. It disappears if you log in after I paste it, so I'll keep pasting it. Our next agenda item is the land acknowledgement. Amy, would you be so kind as to do our land acknowledgement?
I would be so kind. We want to start this meeting with our Indigenous land acknowledgement, which is available on our chapter website. In the DFW area, we are standing and living on the lands stolen from the Kickapoo, Wichita, Tawakani, Jumanos, and Comanche people who have been harmed yet continue to thrive in the process of colonization and white supremacy. I encourage all of us to go to native-land.ca and educate ourselves on these Native communities.
Thank you, Amy.
Good.
Simon, would you give us our ground rules for these meetings?
Absolutely. Ground rules for our meetings: please make space or take space. Limit your comments to 2 minutes each so that everybody has time to speak. When you speak, speak from the I perspective instead of generalizing. Practice active listening and seek to understand. Assume that everybody has good intentions. Respect one another's space, time, and interest. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Be open to productive discomfort. Remember that intent does not negate impact. Disagree without discord. Personal attacks and labeling have no place in our chapter. And please accept there are no quick fixes for the issues we discuss.
Thank you,
That's pretty
Simon.
good.
Good. And Beth, do you have something creative to say to us today?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have something to share today, and it is about the creative process. And I've got some teachings from two of the Indigenous elders that I have studied with that I want to share today. So first, it begins with gratitude, and it begins with gratitude for the earth. And here we are in the summer, and it's hot outside, but we give gratitude to the beautiful, ripe berries and cooling fruit that this abundant season gives us, the cooling juice of juicy red, pink watermelons, and the cool waters that we drink and dangle our feet in and shower in to help us with the heat of the season. The message from the elders is about overcoming obstacles. And the reminder is that whenever we set forth on a creative journey to bring something into being, or any kind of goal-oriented journey, that we are going to bump into challenges. It is the very part of the creative process. And so the message from the elders, from my elder, grandmother Twyla Nitch, she felt that this month was all about love. What, might you be asking, does love have to do with being an environmentalist? As Tina Turner said, what's love got to do with it? And she said love has everything to do with it. She called it the lover conqueror. Lover/conqueror she gave to us. And we sat at our feet, scratching our heads and said, how do those two relate? Aren't those two things like ships crossing in the night, the lover conqueror? And she simply said, oh, yes, because we overcome our obstacles with love. Take your action out of love, she said to us. And my other elder Amelie said, love is the very fabric of the universe, and the universe does not lessen the amount of love in whatever quotient we're working with. We do. And so she said to us, feel your feelings, but don't lessen your ability to receive the vastness of love. Don't make the ocean a straw. Be mad where you're mad. Be mad at your people, places, circumstances, organizations, corporations, and keep that valve of love open. For both of these elders, they felt that this was also the pathway of being a peacemaker while we're being environmentalists, activists, creating in our lives. I'm grateful to the elders for sharing this information, and I'm happy to open them from a spirit of heart, also said to be the organ of the season of summer, joy, heart, love. And so we begin our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Good. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this theme today that Robert will be addressing started with some conversations between Maureen and I about eco anxiety, climate anxiety, and it would be a very appropriate topic for us to learn more about, since we're all constantly feeling that and living that. So we're very grateful today to have Robert Bell with us, who will be speaking with us from the Climate Coaching Alliance. He's a former elementary, middle school, and high school teacher. He was credentialed to teach life science students, behavior disordered students, emotionally disturbed students, learning handicapped students, and H-Mung students over a period of 26 years. The students' ages range from 8 years old to 17 years old. As I mentioned, he's involved in the Climate Coaching Alliance. Robert, I should have asked you, but I've been traveling. Anything else we should know about you before we get started?
No, that's fine. And I've noticed on your website that there are personal stories are sort of a part of things. So
Yes.
I put a little personal story in my speech.
Good, good. Well, the floor is yours, Robert, and we'll all sit back and be very attentive. We very much appreciate your being here.
Thank you for inviting me. All right, as I told Richard earlier, when we started, I'm starting here with your mission statement for the Dallas-Fort Worth mission statement. I thought that'd be a good way to kind of introduce myself to the people and themes and the audience, because I'm used to the Climate Coaching Alliance audience, which is a different crowd. And the mission statement is just amazing. So what I've done here is about the first 9 minutes, I'm just reflecting on transforming eco-anxiety and your mission statement. And then I go on to the book that I read. And it's all kind of prepared. I timed it last night. Richard said go for 25 minutes. I was 24 minutes and 50 seconds after 5 or 6 different run-throughs. So I'm confident I'll be able to hold into the time and reserve time for sort of social talking. Okay, and as far as the slides go, Richard, you're going to screen share me. Let's do that now. Uh-oh, everything just went mute. I went mute.
You should be able to share your screen.
All right, let me practice screen sharing and come out of it, see what happens. Screen share, screen share.
There we go. We're seeing your slides.
Okay, it worked. Wow. All right. All right. So my name is Robert Bell. I'm presenting today about ideas from a book that I read last summer. It's called N'ayez pas peur du collapse. I don't speak French. It's in French. Don't be afraid of collapse. Over the last year, those ideas have completely changed my worldview, particularly about climate. But first, I'd like to begin with the mission statement of the Climate Reality Project. I decided to start with your mission statement and then go into the book. But I must say that your mission statement carried me away. About the first 10 minutes here will be about how transforming eco-anxiety begins with the ideas in your mission statement. So here's slide 1. Our mission is to catalyze a global solution to the climate crisis by making urgent action a necessity across every sector of society. All right, now I'll see if I can go back to stop sharing. Let me practice this here. All right, so I'm going to stop share. I'm going to go back. I'm not that good at this. I got my own Zoom account and I'm running meetings, but I'm still a beginner. Making urgent action can involve personal activism and social activism, or both. And I know that Climate Reality Project is focusing on political action, social action, but there's also personal action. It's all part of it all. In August 2018, Greta Thunberg decided to dedicate Fridays for Our Future and sat alone in a climate strike in front of a government building. Over the next year, millions of students, often with their parents, joined her school strike for climate. One person sitting in front of a government building in Stockholm, and suddenly there's 1 million people a year later, and even 7 million people just before COVID hit, according to some reports. A year later, she refused to fly, but sailed instead on a yacht to New York to speak at the UN about climate. She became the person of the year that year. She said, I'm not flying. So she took a yacht. Over the next year, her focus on airline emissions led many people who flew to consider their emissions. It also led to demonstrations against private jets at airports, including tarmac sit-ins in the Amsterdam airport. And that's going on now in Europe a lot. There's this demonstration, why should people get in a private jet and fly somewhere and this huge emission comes out when they can just get on a regular flight or not fly? Throughout history, changes often begin at the personal level and then spread to the social level. There was Gandhi's Salt March, which led to the independence of India 17 years later, which I saw when I was a kid. There's a movie about it, and it's basically people lined up walking to the beach to make salt against the British law saying that only the Brits could make salt in India on the ocean, in the Indian Ocean. And the people were being clubbed and they just kept walking to the ocean to make salt. 20 years of the Vietnam War ended because of personal and social urgent actions. Martin Luther King read about the salt marches and then started the civil rights movement, which changed our views on race. The March on Washington, all this different way of thinking at it, nonviolent civil disobedience, boom. All of these events occurred before the viral speeds of the internet. Before the internet, changes happened much more slowly. Now here's a global solution that happened slowly. And I'm not going to ask you to read this, just look at the slopes. This goes straight up, as I'm sure everybody knows or has seen, since 1990 to 1960 to 2020, emissions going straight up, getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. This graph of smoking from about 1900 to 1960 was actually steeper if you took it to scale and went up faster. By 1964, a lot of people smoking. There were half a pack of cigarettes per day for every adult over 18 in the US, if you can imagine. Every single adult smoking over 18, smoking half a pack a day. I still can't comprehend that. My dad smoked, I didn't know back then. But Surgeon General's report came down, and as soon as in 1964, the Surgeon General's report on smoking and health reversed the slope. Millions of people at the personal level read the news, stopped smoking. At the social level, it is now very hard to smoke cigarettes in public places. Try going into your Starbucks and smoking a cigarette. Nobody does it anymore. All right, I just showed that slide briefly. If there's time, I'll come back to it at the end, but I want to stay right on track with the time. In 1969, I graduated from college and I became a personal activist when I decided to go to prison instead of medical school in protest against the Vietnam War. That was the mood of the day. That I remember the president of Stanford University went to prison on. The president of the class of Stanford University decided to go to prison instead of go to the war. And I went, whoa. It was an ethical decision. I had seen a Vietnamese monk self-immolate on TV. And I heard Martin Luther King Jr. urging African-American men to refuse to fight in the war. 3,000 other men also went to prison, and another 300,000 stopped cooperating with the draft board. The 20-year war ended a few years later, and a social activism had forced a global solution, truly global, from Vietnam to the USA. Your mission statement's idea of every sector of society includes a very broad scope. While thinking about this presentation, I have come to realize that a small personal project I've been working on actually involves a huge sector of society, 4 million teachers and their 50 million students. I noticed on the Climate Reality Project website that there are many personal stories, and I realize that I have one here to share myself. A year ago, I read an essay by a 15-year-old friend of Greta Thunberg's called Dear Grown-Ups. Alexandria Villaseñor from New York suggested that retirees whose children had grown up and moved away should go to a local school and teach youth about climate change. What a simple, good idea. So on Earth Day 2022, I went to my local high school and talked with 2 science teachers about teaching a climate class as part of their science curriculum. I'd come in weekly, monthly, didn't matter, take some kids, do a climate class. I had taught science for many years and the teachers were interested in the idea. When I returned home, however, I realized I was frozen about what to teach. It was just too hard to give lessons about the data catastrophe of collapsing climate that we are witnessing without being able to give them any sure solutions. I kept the email addresses that I had been given and I did nothing. Then in August, last August, I discovered this book, N'est pas peur du collapse, published in 2020. There was no English translation and I never learned French, but with Google Translate and a dictionary, I slowly worked through it in about 4 months. By November, I felt like my worldview had changed and I began to take urgent actions. At the personal level, my own carbon footprint became a daily target for me to work with. At the social level, I began giving Zoom presentations with the Climate Coaching Alliance. And then on Earth Day 2023, I became excited about starting the climate class. And I went back to see the same science teachers a year later who remembered me. They passed my ideas on to the vice principals. I met with the vice principals last month and set up climate class for next year as part of the curriculum in environmental science. And I'm really excited, looking forward to it. I'm writing a Transform Eco-Anxiety training manual. I'm not calling it therapy, this is a training manual. It's going to be written at the 10th grade level. I've got about 30 pages of it. It's going to be about 50 pages long. It's going to take the ideas of this book and just present them to 10th graders. One vice principal, I showed the manual to the vice principals. And then one vice principal quietly told me that he recently came down to his kitchen and he found his 12-year-old daughter weeping at the kitchen table. When he asked her what was wrong, she looked up and she said, climate. It is a huge sector of society that I'm targeting with my personal activism, both secondary school students living at home and their teachers. A large proportion of those teachers read the news and recognize the climate emergency. Next month, during summer break, I'm going to give 2 presentations directed specifically towards teachers and parents concerned with the challenges that are before our eco-anxious youth. According to a 2021 Lancet study, that's the British Medical Journal, of 10,000 youth in 10 developed countries, France, US, UK, all over the world, the majority of our youth describe themselves as eco-anxious. Most of them, it's like 70%. 56% of them believe that our planet is doomed. Most of the kids, 16 to 25, according to a sample of 10,000 in 10 developed countries, figure the planet is doomed. So there's this mindset that's different than the baby boomer mindset that I grew up with, for sure. These students are a highly approachable sector of our society, much more approachable, say, than 4 million truck drivers. These kids are going to school, they're living at home, and they could be worked with. Many teachers in core subjects could teach about climate as part of their math, science, their math, their English, their literature, their science, their social Spanish lesson. Climate data could become a math lesson. Put a graph up, talk about the graph. Climate fiction could be the literature. There's a whole bunch of climate fiction out there now. Just that's the book we're reading. The sector of 54 million teachers and students includes both influential people, teachers, and influencers to be. Students growing up or going out in the world. Climate classes could lead to big changes for future generations. Currently, however, there is a spiral of silence in our culture. According to the 2021 Yale Climate Opinion Survey of 20,000 people in the US, only 1 in 12 respondents hears others talking about climate change at least once a week. That's 11 in 12 people who don't hear others mentioning climate at all. Also, 64% of the 20,000 respondents all throughout the country rarely or never speak about climate. They put down on the survey, rarely or never, check. And even though half of that 64% believe that climate change is happening, of course, half of them were deniers, but half of them believe it was happening, but they still would not talk about it with their kids or at the dinner table. No mention. However, this spiral of silence could be broken by the current heat dome in the South and the hottest week in July on the globe in all of world history. Who knows? In the next 18 months, a further crescendo of broken heat records are expected as El Nino moves into place. As for the mission statement's global solution, Zoom can easily be a global solution inside or outside of school once it's organized and set up. Information on this Zoom is not being censored by the school board or the state legislatures, although misinformation and chat GPT may disrupt this pattern in the future. Who knows what those are going to be doing. Okay, I'd like to stop here for comments or questions. And then I'm going to go on to the essence of the book. Any questions? Let's see, I don't, okay, if you, I don't know, if people had a question, Richard, they would step in, or I'd see one of those little virtual hands.
Right, I think they could put
Okay,
up a
all right, let's keep
virtual,
going then.
yeah.
I've got like 100 pages, I just can roll through if I need to. All right. So that is my reflection on your mission statement. Thank you all for provoking my thoughts. Next, I will give an overview of the book and then go over 4 of its key ideas and details. About a dozen ideas. I got 4 of them I want to go over, and there's another 4 I could do, but I don't want to break the time limits. To begin with, what is existential ecology? Here is the overview of the ideas of Pierre-Eric Sutter in Don't Be Afraid of Collapse. And I just go click on this screen share, next slide. Check. There. All right, that's the picture that I came up with, not knowing it was ever going to be used anywhere, to describe the whole book and what he's thinking. Sutter is an existential therapist in France. A French bestseller in 2015 was called How Everything Can Collapse by another man. And it started a movement called collapsology, about collapsing global systems, including the climate. Currently, 1 in 5 French people have heard of collapsology. And when Sutter asked me of translating the book into English and selling it in the US, and he said, well, I told him maybe 1 in 5,000 people have heard of collapsology over here. It's different. Sutter began having therapy sessions with people who had been devastated by the ideas in the book. I was depressed myself. I read it in 2019, and for 3 months I was depressed. And I'm not a depressed guy. It's just collapsing. Everything was collapsing. After thousands of interviews, he began to see that some people had read the book, become thoroughly depressed, and then somehow worked through it all and are now totally happy. So he decided to write a book about it. The preface of the book, he just starts off with a librarian in Paris, a big library, and she's totally can't sleep, can't eat, really unhappy. And then boom, she transforms into being in her overalls, picking up radishes in the community garden, beaming at him. And she goes, wow, it took 2 years. So the gist of the idea is that you start out with your ecological awareness and existence and recognize that the ecology is now with us, and we can see the heat coming up and the storms and the wildfires. We just had a wildfire yesterday, or 2 days ago in where I'm from. And that's happening. So, excuse me, making meanings around that. We include the environment as we make meanings about things. Once we have the meanings made, we make eco choices. And from there, eco engagements like this Zoom happen. People engage around ecology, environment, and the natural process. The gist of it is you face the facts, you bring the facts deep inside. Inside, you got this ethics of conviction, and that connects with an ethics of responsibility. From there, eco gestures, which I'll explain in a minute, start happening, being invented and created everywhere. They can turn into eco habits. Eco habits can become eco projects, can lead to personal transformation and social transformation. Over the last 2 centuries, existentialism has concerned itself with death, meaninglessness, freedom, and isolation. That's what I learned in 1980 in a class, a group psychotherapy class. I have changed these terms, and Sutter has agreed with my changes to make the ideas easier to understand and more useful for teaching youth. They can be broken down like this. Being with changes, being with dying, you could say, but for youth, I don't want to use the word dying. I'm just saying being with changes, dying, divorce, new apartment, whatever the change. From there, you make meanings. You move to Dallas from San Francisco, and you're making meanings, thinking things differently. You make new choices, and you engage. Your ecological awareness with your existence becomes very important. You ask eco meanings. Why is it so hot suddenly? You make eco choices. Should I fly to visit my 2 brothers and 2 sisters in Pennsylvania and New York this year? No. And then you make eco engagements, which are starting to happen everywhere. I'm amazed that I really like your Zoom here and your ground rules. I never in my life have heard such cool ground rules as the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter has here. The nuts and bolts, face the facts, bring the facts deep inside to meet your ethics and convictions and your modes of being. From there, there's an ethics of responsibility. You create eco gestures, little gestures that you make, like using the electric bike that's been in my garage for a couple of years. Eco habits can develop if you use that bike a lot. Personal transformation, check, happened to me. Personal activism. And then maybe social activism, eco projects, social transformation. All right, one key concept from the book describes the brakes that we have developed, which prevent us from taking action at the personal level. Sutter describes 7 brakes to action about making change. And I hate putting up PowerPoints and reading the PowerPoint, but I'm just going to skim through it. And I'm also going to send these in your chat. I'll do that right. No, I can't do that right now. But in the breakout group, I'd like to just ask questions about these. First, we're in the present moment. We can't master the information. So we put off the problem. We'll be at net zero by 2050. Misinformation confuses us. Fake news. Beliefs and ideologies distance us from facing the facts. Techno-salvation will bring us all the answers very soon. In 2098, they're going to discover that they can mix rust and milk together and it'll make a new compound and it'll have free energy. And by 2099, everything will be solved. It's techno-salvation. It has worked. Right now, I'm used to technology saving things for me, and it's worked. Comparisons with others. They aren't doing it, so why should we? The average person drives 13,000 miles a year, so I'm not so bad. China burns more coal than we do. Sunken costs, and this is a hard one for the baby boomers. Investments investments made in the past risk being lost if we have to change our behavior. Abandoned malls, abandoned freeways, or a wonderful car we just got 3 years ago. I'm going to get rid of I got mine 10 years ago, my little Prius. I'm going to get rid of that and get another car, get an electric car. Uncertainties and mistrust can cause a denial of the problem. For several decades, fossil fuel companies just advertised uncertainties about the causes of climate change, and they delayed eco actions. Until the lawsuits of 2018, that was the first time things started to get serious. Perceived risks, often guided by the media. Intense risks are pointed out more than frequent risks. Exceptional events like school shootings get much more attention than the 40,000 annual traffic deaths in the United States. One wildfire creates a huge amount of attention, but low groundwater in El Paso or somewhere doesn't get the same kind of attention. Tokenism and limited change. I think this may be the most serious one. We choose an easy action. I always turn off the water while I brush my teeth, but not the hard action. I don't want to think about my frequent flyer emissions. And we feel like we've done our part. So those are 7 breaks for action that Sutter points out that I find very interesting. And it's interesting to compare the breaks to action of seniors like me and of youth. Although seniors seem to display all of these breaks to action, it seems that our youth only display a few of them. The youth of the world definitely do not seem to have their brakes locked. This spring, I joined 200 high school students on a climate walkout during 3rd period from their school to the downtown plaza, where they heard moving speeches, songs, and chants for an hour. Whose future? Our future. Whose future? Our future. I was amazed. That's kind of also what brought me back into the schools. All right, time check, 8:43. And I had planned for an 8-minute breakout group, 5 people in the group, talk about breaks to action and come up with any questions that might have come up. What do you think, Richard? Does that sound good?
that should work. I can create 4 breakout rooms with approximately 5 each for 8 minutes, you said?
Yeah, just 8 minutes. It could be good.
Okay,
And I'm gonna chat I'm gonna push return here. And so here come the boom. Limited cognitions, beliefs and ideology. Comparisons with others, sunken costs, uncertainties, perceived risk, tokenism. What do you have? Name 2. I've got at least 2.
so the breakout rooms would address, personalize these 7
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then
Well,
any questions, any big questions about this whole picture?
okay, I will create 4 breakout rooms. And all rooms should be open.
Okay.
No, but Everybody has 60 seconds to get back, Robert, and then they should be back.
Okay. That worked out nicely, even without the chat list. That worked nicely.
Right, we continue to learn about Zoom.
I won't make that mistake again, I promise.
I've been using it for probably 5 years, and each experience I learned something.
And they change it. Next Zoom version is going to be different, so you'll have
Right.
to relearn. Okay, zip, zap, boom. We're back. I hope that worked out well for people. There was no chat list. Richard and I just learned that you can't put it on chat and get to it. So nobody had a list. But each person should have remembered like 1 or 2 things, right? That came up. So it worked, in some ways it worked out better that way. No list, it's just right here or not.
Probably the thing that you're guilty of is like stuck with you too. Like we had a really good conversation based on all this stuff.
Good. Anybody want to lead a comment or a question about this whole topic or the breaks or anything?
Michael has his hand up.
Okay.
Unmute. I think Simon made a good observation, learning that it's not just what we do, but it's the system that we've got to change. And that's a profound learning. But the other conversation we really had is about having the conversations, the shocking statistics, Robert, you gave about people aren't talking about it. And the need to have that, because people don't hear about it, they assume it must be okay. And it is spreading, but we got a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Yeah, the spiral of silence, I just heard about it because my brother-in-law from Washington, D.C., who's a writer of climate, he just writes books and stuff on it and gives speeches all the time. He sent me a link to the Yale Climate Opinion survey group, the Yale group, and they were going to talk about extrapolations, which is the Al Gore's partner, Scott Burns, they made An Inconvenient Truth, and now Scott Burns made Contagion, and now he's made extrapolations of 2037 and 2070 based on how we're going now, business as usual. And it's this culture of silence that has really shocked me. I just heard it on a Zoom in one of the climate talks, checked out the Yale information, but people don't talk about it and you can't bring it up. And my wife doesn't want to talk about it. She's in the bedroom behind me and she might be able to hear what I'm saying, but for 40 years I've been talking about it. She does not want to talk about this. What, you want to make me depressed? What can I do? So I'm doing my, personal thing, but I'm not pushing it. And if she's going to, take a trip to Italy or something, I'm not saying it, anyway, thank you. That was good. Anybody else?
You've got 3 virtual hands up.
Okay, I'm going to go
Maureen?
by order. Maureen, I'll go left to right, teacher style here. Maureen.
We talked about how lives are so busy, it's really hard to know where to fit it into your busy lives. And 2, when you are concerned, to know where to begin. And I have to add my personal thing to that, because I think Americans tend to think in terms of problems and therefore solutions, whereas there's a school of thought talking about predicaments and how we adjust to predicaments, right? And then we talked about the reactions of some older people who say, not my problem, I'm out of here. And then the fear of parents holding children back from the free roaming in nature that some of us had the beauty of experiencing. So we talked about it would be great for nature groups for kids. And I want to talk to you about that in relation to the arts, but not now. Is there anything else I left out, Kevin? And was there anything else I left out?
I think that covers it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Rebecca. Unmute.
Yes. Hi. So I'm so sorry if you brought up social media in the first few minutes of your presentation. I was a little bit late, but I'm curious if how all of this topic and social media kind of fits into, because just a little anecdote. I was at a kind of a town hall meeting of sorts this week for our local school. They had to do some redevelopment, and people were so vocal about keeping the trees whenever you redesign the school and make sure it's walkable, and just so many really great comments. They did have some people who would complain, and this stop sign, this speed limit, people don't do the pedestrian. And he said, if you would call 311 instead of complain on Nextdoor or post on social media, that probably would have been taken care of. But when you tell me that this issue, and whatever it was, they looked it up, he said there was 0 complaints on 311 about it. Whereas if you're saying this many people have a problem and want this change, this walkability change in this neighborhood, but there's no document on record, do you find that social media has somehow come into this topic as like I'm taking action? But we all know if you just complain about it on social media, it's not going to be action.
What a great question. There was that guy in Africa, the Lord or something, he had an army, a militia of people, and they started a project and they raised millions and millions of dollars in social media, but nothing happened on the whole thing.
Oh, the Coney.
The Coney, yeah.
I remember that.
Coney, right. I don't do social media. I tried Facebook for 2 months, 10 years ago when it first came out. My daughter has 18,000 followers. And every time I want to get a hold of her, boom, her phone's right there. I just text her, she's there. But I don't do any. And I try and limit emails, and I think that it is, as you suggest, it's like talking into a paper bag and thinking everybody can hear you, and and just put it out and blast it in social media, and you think that that'll solve it. But it's not a connection with City Hall, a connection with the parking facility down here, or the parks over here, what they're doing with this. It's not a connection at all. It's just a myth.
Yeah, you just spoke about generational, and I think the boomer generation is more familiar with contacting legislators and representatives, and the younger generation who is inspiring for sure, often take to social media for things. And so, I think about that.
I do say that although I avoid all social media and try not to do any of it, I am hooked on AOC and Greta Thunberg on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter. I have a Twitter account, but I never look at it. But I just check out Twitter AOC and Greta AOC. I mean, Twitter AOC and Greta Twitter. And every day I look forward to their take on it, because they have this accurate, short summary of an important thing that I always find valuable to learn about. And the new Twitter change now, with how everything's going bad, and we're supposed to switch over to threads or something. I'm really missing it. I'm really missing that vital, huge audience, 5 million, 10 million people, all just seeing these little tweets.
And yet certain politicians use tweets a lot, shall be nameless, but we see that. You're smiling, Rebecca, you know who I'm talking about. So there is some attention by politicians towards the social media. Sorry to jump.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move on, because got these important ideas. I want to try and spit them out. We can come back to comments and questions later. Next slide, it's really hard to watch. What happens on Earth during this century? Whatever happens on Earth during this century, our youth will be facing great challenges and will need great coping skills. Here is the IPCC summary for policymakers. And on Greta Thunberg's tweet, they showed it to a group of policymakers in some top 29 or something, 28 thing, and nobody was even listening to it. They just were looking at their phones and didn't make any dent.
Robert, should we be seeing your screen?
I'll hit it, boom.
Okay.
Sorry, and I don't expect anybody to read this. It's too long to read, but just look at the colors. All right, down. And I'm sure people have seen this. They put this out in March, the IPCC summary for policymakers. You think that all CEOs throughout the world would have looked at it. Don't really have words. Look at now, and it's 1.3 or 1.4 degrees, and it's rough. And over 100 degrees for a week is rough. And if the humidity's high, that's hard. If you're born now, and we have very low emissions, about considering what's projected, their whole life on this bottom level will be worse than anything we've seen. And if it's very high, that's the extrapolations movie, and it's out of control. The fourth episode in India is just unbelievable. People stay in all day, and they go out at sunset, and they're allowed out in the night until sunrise, and they come back in the house. It's really hard to watch. So don't bother to read the words, just look at the colors. It's important to put ourselves in the mindset of those 56% of youth in the Lancet study who believe that the planet is doomed. That's what's coming up. We have to sort of sit with that. They are inheriting a difficult climate and they need help. What solutions can we offer them which will enable them to have satisfying lives? All right, and here comes this paradoxical question. How can a person be happy in either the situation where climate change goes out of control or the situation in which humans are successful in modifying the extreme effects of increased CO2 emissions? To answer this seemingly impossible question, Sutter tells us the South American story of a hummingbird who was in an equally difficult situation. I mean, what a question. How could you be happy both ways? One day there was a huge forest fire. All the terrified animals, stunned, were helplessly watching the disaster. Only the little hummingbird was busy, picking up a few drops with its beak to throw them on the fire. After a moment, the armadillo, irritated by this behavior, said to him, "Hummingbird, are you crazy? It's not with these drops of water that you're going to put out the fire." And the hummingbird replied, "I know it, but I'm doing my part." I looked up the story again on the internet. A second version of this ancient story has a slightly different ending. Then one of the animals shouted out and challenged the hummingbird in a mocking voice. "What do you think you're doing?" And the hummingbird, without wasting time or losing a beat, looked back and said, "I'm doing what I can." When I told this story to a friend, a third ending popped out of my mouth. "I'm doing everything I can, come on." The book explains that the journey is just as much the method of achieving it as the experience through which we will pass. It's about both the method we use to get through a dark tunnel, as well as the way that we walk. Eyes open with a flashlight versus blindfolded and feeling for the walls. Let's say that we have two options. Okay, I'm going to stop share. So back to faces here. And this last key idea I really want to get into, because that's the solution for being a teacher of these 10th graders who are eco-anxious and see the world as doomed, here's what we can do. Let's say there's two options. Option one, we will save the planet. Option two, we will not save the planet. The hummingbird seems to find happiness in either situation. How can that be possible? Sutter explains that part of the reason for the hummingbird's happiness has to do with what psychologists call the locus of control. Some people control themselves by focusing on something inside themselves, often an influential adult's voice, their parents' voice, teacher's voice when they were a kid. They just hear that voice. I still hear my mother say, be a labor, great or small, do it well or not at all. When I go to clean up the dishes and I don't quite finish, and I say, be a labor, great or small, do it well or not. That comes from a 1935, or her third grade teacher had them stand up next to their desk and say, be a labor, great or small, do it well or not at all. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then she had another Tuesday and Thursday one. And that saying from that teacher in 1934 is in my head when I go to leave the dishes a little bit undone. So that influential adult's voice in our brain is significant. These people that focus on something inside themselves, they make their decisions about how to act from the inside out. Other people make their decisions about how to act based on what they think other people would do from the outside in. Which method you choose to achieve the journey is very important. Once a person understands how this works, they can slowly change their locus of control and look at things differently. The ending with the hummingbird saying, I'm doing everything I can, shows an internal locus of control because the hummingbird is acting from meanings deep inside. The ending with, I'm doing my part, shows an external locus of control because the hummingbird is socially aware of what others are doing and then trying to fit in. Which ending works best? If what others are doing is putting out our planet's fire, option 2, then I'm doing my part is fine. If on the other hand, if others are not trying to stop the fire, then an internal locus of control works best. I'm doing everything I can. I'm not just doing my part here, I'm doing what I can. In both situations, though, your eco-anxiety transforms and you end up feeling good about yourself and your actions. This is positive self-esteem. When you look back on it all, no regrets. You've moved from being a passive pessimist, like the armadillo, to an active optimist, like the hummingbird. The last key idea from the book I want to go over is called the eco-gesture. Every day, each of us chooses to make many, many small actions, often related to energy consumption, which can involve food, transportation, air conditioning adjustments, clothing, consumer activities, and so on. Youth under 16 are not as engaged in fossil fuel use, and their smaller actions related to energy consumption often include recycling, plastic use, closing doors, turning off lights. Different set of things. Although when they turn 16 and get a car, things change. There is a new word used in Europe called eco-gesture, which is not in the English Webster's dictionary yet, but it is used throughout the book. And I'm going to quote from the book. I made book notes, and so a lot of what I'm going to say here is just quotes from the book. If you think of a gesture, it is a movement of a part of the body, especially the hand or the head, to express a meaning or an idea. It's a physical sign that's coming from your inner mode of being, where your sense of ethics, convictions, and responsibilities well. Inside, you have some meaning systems. For example, compare waving goodbye to a friend with waving away a mosquito. Even though the motion may appear to be exactly the same, the meanings are different. After thousands of interviews with people devastated by the idea of collapsing systems, Sutter found that transforming ecological anxiety begins with eco-gestures, no matter how small they might be. According to a large survey in France, people who take these small steps see an improvement in their self-esteem. And they report getting satisfaction by trying even small changes. And there's thousands of people in France that have just transformed into, they even have a happy collapse group. And they have a hummingbird society. They say that starting with eco gestures that may seem insignificant is fundamental. It allows you to start the journey from the inside and then make your behavior on the outside indistinguishable from the meanings on the inside. That's a mosquito. If they are sustained, they turn into eco habits. The author discovered that a new attitude arose in those who found meaning by investing in small daily gestures. Every eco gesture counts for the planet, even if at first glance it seems to be insignificant. In those Richard's Motel there, if they did not have 4 different kinds of shampoo that they threw out if you didn't use, they only had one and it was very simple, cheaper. That's nice. Above all, these eco gestures count for yourself. There's the possibility of aligning eco gesture after eco gesture, your behaviors with your environmental values. For me, I felt like I got transformed last November as I finished the book. I took all the ideas to heart and began inventing and investing in daily eco gestures. I faced the monthly mileage increases on the odometer of my thermal car. I evaluated the 22.4 miles I drove every Wednesday to play full court basketball. I figured out what weather was suitable for riding my electric bike. 43, okay. 40, no, that's too cold. It was no longer overwhelming to look at all the energy waste around me. I began just to look at my own, drop by drop. This spring, I began giving presentations with the Climate Coaching Alliance. I felt like the hummingbird, dropping drops one by one, making some kind of difference, being watched by the armadillos in my life, and at the end of the day, feeling good about my experiences. I'm doing everything I can. Come on. So anyway, I really appreciate the audience. You got, I tell you, I'd join your group in a flash if it was 10 a.m. on Saturday morning instead of 8 a.m. But from Oregon time here is just too early. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Robert. Very informative and thought-provoking. We do have some questions. We're kind of a little over time, so we need to move on. Let's see.
Oh, and you know what? I have an email. You can just check. You can send me your questions, and we can not lose any time and not cut other people out here. Let me put my email up on the screen share. Really
that
quick.
would be very much appreciated.
You can just email, and I'm so thankful to have people interested in this. You guys are so cool. All right, second version. These are supplemental materials. Here we go. Really easy to write down, but hard to say and hard to read. rfbbb@gmail.com. 5 B's. Please email Robert Bell if you would like a copy of today's script and the slides. For further study of Don't Be Afraid of Collapse, the Transforming Eco Anxiety Pod of the Climate Coaching Alliance meets on the first Tuesday of the month, 11 o'clock my time.
Is that book still only available in French?
Yeah, and as I say, the author asked me, should we try and translate it for the English audience? And I told him over here the word collapsology. I read about collapsology in the New York Review of Books in 2019. My wife gave me an article that had it in it. And I haven't seen the word mentioned at all. Americans just don't do that. So if he were to put his book out, Don't Be Afraid of Collapse, it would not be a bestseller. I don't think it would be a bestseller, but who knows? Maybe it'll come out.
Thank you so much again, Robert. You're certainly welcome to stay. I realize it's quite early for you. We have a few more people who have some important announcements that are, well, one is Dallas-centric and the other two are more national centric. So thank you so much, Robert, and we will email you any further questions and comments. We really appreciate the tremendous work you put into this presentation and your willingness to join us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And since I'm up, I'm staying.
Okay, good for you. We're happy to have you. Okay, Simon, some new impact areas from Climate Reality. Would you like to talk about those?
I would. So for a long time, I think people have been asking, who are we as Climate Reality? What makes us different from these other organizations? Because since the pandemic started, we've kind of moved away from giving presentations in front of large rooms of crowded people. And National's been working on this for a while. I've been pestering them almost constantly for an answer. And they revealed something. So they gave us a preview at the last leadership call last week. There's an important date coming up. On the 25th of July will be the global reveal of what I'm going to talk to you all about. There's going to be 2 programs, 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. I'm going to set that up on Discord as a save the date so you're aware of it. It's the exact same program in the morning and in the evening. It's just 2 different time zones so that no matter where you are in the world, you're going to be able to get this information. And that global focus is part of how they're realigning. So Climate Reality is going to expand the US chapter model to all global territories it operates within. All of those territories will be open for collaboration with each other and with the United States. In effect, Climate Reality will become a globally focused organization where all members can share information and support each other easily. Right now, it's set up where like US gets most of Climate Reality's focus, and then separate from that are these other levels of all of the other countries. That's all going to be on the same hierarchical level. Like everybody is gonna have the same ability to interact with each other. As an organization, we will focus on 4 key areas of impact: emissions reduction, climate financing, anti-greenwashing, and COP28. There's going to be some organization around COP28 at the end of the year, and they're going to do that pretty much every single year. You might be asking, what about environmental justice? That wasn't one of the 4 things that I mentioned, and we've been harping on that forever. EJ awareness, concepts, and practices will be visible in the work we are asked to do in every one of these areas. It is going to be part of the fabric of how Climate Reality operates. It is not a separate topic because it is expected to be part of everything that we do. So all of this is part of Climate Reality's 2030 vision. They've mapped out, and I don't have the full scope of the 2030 vision, but they'll reveal that on the 25th. But this is to get us where they see the organization being in 7 more years. So as I told you, all of this will be revealed globally in detail by Al Gore and a panel of speakers on July 25th. The program will occur twice, once at 9 a.m. Eastern and again at 8 p.m. Eastern. The information and speakers will be the same. The Zoom call will be open to both trained leaders and general chapter members. Anybody of any affiliation with Climate Reality can attend. The July 25th announcement will include clear actions leaders can take to support the new impact areas. Promise future resources in addition to more action items, include toolkits and webinars. That is everything that I know as of right now. Anybody have any questions? Not that I can answer them, but you know.
I won't bother you with a question, but I'm going to join Climate Reality West Coast. I'm going to figure out where it is. It's really cool.
Okay. You're in Oregon, aren't you?
Ashland, Oregon, Northern California.
A couple of our members are up that way. Former chairs even.
I'll find it.
Right, we had our 2 former chairs, one's in Portland and one's in Eugene. So something's got to be going on. Okay, Kevin, thank you for your patience. We'd like to hear about the City of Dallas heat mapping survey.
Sure. Let me just share my screen here real quick. And I promise I'm not going to give you a really long, boring slide presentation. Okay, that didn't work the way can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see the screen or is it all jumbled up?
No, we're just seeing you. You're not sharing yet.
Okay. We'll just not worry about sharing the screen then. Let me get out of this. Hang on. Sorry, I apologize for technical difficulties. Normally I can do Zoom pretty easily, but for today, for some reason, it try that.
Now it
Yeah.
works.
Okay,
That's good.
it's not in full screen mode, but we'll just go with it anyway. What it messed up while ago when I put some full screen mode. So basically what we have done is we've started we've got a grant from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. And you can see the other cities and even Santiago, Chile, international city, that are all participating in this campaign this year. And this is this year's campaign. There's a bunch of other cities that have done this in the past. And the way this works is I designed a study area for Dallas. They told us we could do up to 100 square miles. So that area on that map is about 100 square miles. And then they told us to pick out approximately 20 to 25 special points of interest. I worked on picking out areas that were high on the high levels of environmental justice concern, levels of lots of traffic, lots of people being around, areas where you would want the healthiest areas like the hospital district, industrial areas, just a wide variety of areas that I picked out for that. And so on August the 8th, Saturday, we are going to we're asking for volunteers. The company that the consultant that we're working with, that's a contractor to NOAA, it's called Kappa Strategies, and they are taking this study area and creating routes of about 10 miles. And we will get volunteers. I don't know exactly how many routes we're going to have yet. They're still working on that. And 3 times on that day, we will drive those routes. They have a little sensor package that you attach to the passenger side of your car window, and it collects temperature, humidity, GPS location, and time. And it collects data every second. It will take approximately about an hour to drive the route. The speed limit is we set a speed limit of I think 35 miles per hour. And the first route will be from 6 to 7 in the morning. Then we'll do one from 3 to 4 in the afternoon, and then another one from 7 to 8 p.m. in the evening. And that data will all be collected, and Kappa Strategies will take it back and create a report that we can then use. It will tell us where our hot spots are, so to speak, at least with regards to Heat Island. It will give us information that we can then use for city planning, you know, a wide variety of things that we can take this information and put it to good use. I'm not going to leave this slide up. This is part of a training package that my coworker is working on. Just for example, if you're not familiar with what an urban heat island is, and I suspect does anybody not know what an urban heat island is? Put your hand up, and I'll go into that. But you guys know that urban heat islands can be up to 20 degrees warmer than normal ground cover. And so it creates a lot of health issues. It exacerbates the climate problem that we have, because now we have these urban centers that are so much hotter, and so all the things that go with the climate issues now become much worse in the urban areas. You know, one of the things that this could tell us is where we have a need for cooling stations in the summer. You know, we know that there's neighborhoods where there's a lot of people that do not have air conditioning or you know, low income. In some of those areas, we set up, the city sets up cooling stations at libraries and recreation centers to get the elderly and the children especially out of the heat into an area where they can cool down and we can get better care. Al, I'm just going to run through this. This is the campaign day, the days of the studies. Here's the problem I have. Last Monday morning, I needed 100 volunteers, and as of a week ago last Friday, I had 18. I woke up on Monday morning and I was in a panic that by this Thursday, when we do our training, I needed 100 volunteers. Monday morning, our media group put out a press release, and all of a sudden, we had calls from Channel 11, Channel 5, WBAP, the Dallas Observer, and all of these, and I'm leaving something out there, but during the week, I did 4 online media interviews with my director, Carlos Evans. And now, as of yesterday afternoon, I have over 120 volunteers. So I was coming to you guys today to ask for volunteers, and I still would appreciate it if you guys volunteered. And I think I had did I not put you know, well, okay. I didn't put I'll put the link in the chat, but I would still love it if you guys volunteered and everything. I thought this would be a great opportunity for the chapter membership, because I know that you guys are struggling right now to get out and do your presentations. I thought this would be a great opportunity. It's a really good citizen science project. I'm actually calling it citizen climate science. And but anyway, that's what I have, and that's what I came to you guys with. And let me see if I can quit sharing my screen, and for some reason, oh, there we go. And I will find the link here real quick. And since I should have it, anyway, is there any questions or comments?
I have an adjacent comment, Kevin. Could you point me in the direction of somebody if I in where I live, I'm not in this map of that's going to be studied, but I think there's a heat island near where I live, and I think trees could be planted. There could be some additional steps we could take for that. I've emailed my city council person, I've emailed my group, my neighborhood. Nobody's getting back to me. Is there maybe somebody in the city that I could speak to about adding additional tree coverage for a certain area?
Where do you live?
In Old Lake Highlands.
Who's your city council person?
Paula Blackman.
And she hasn't responded to you? I'm surprised at that.
I know she has responded to me in the past, but not on this one.
It's kind of a difficult thing as far as where to direct you for resources on this. Hang on one second. Okay, I put the link for the registration in the chat. Please, if you're interested, sign up. And I'll get back to your question in just a second.
Yeah, sure.
But this is the first year we're doing this. I suspect there will be we will probably be doing it again in the future. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, get on our database, and next time when we do this, we will be contacting people with an interest in it straight up without going through the media and everything, and we'll get you included in it. Each one of the routes includes a driver and a navigator. So if you don't have a car or you don't drive, you can still take part as a navigator. The navigator needs a cell phone. They will monitor the equipment. There's a couple of little lights on it, LEDs that tell if it's operating correctly, and they'll be monitoring that. Plus, they will be given the route on their cell phone, I guess on Google Maps or something similar, and they'll be responsible for helping the driver navigate to make sure they follow the exact route and don't deviate from it. Okay, now back to the question of how to get trees planted in your neighborhood. Are you talking about on private property, or are you talking
No,
about
city.
on city property?
But I
What
can
kind of
email you. I'll email you separately.
It's important. What kind of property?
It's a median strip, but it's a very wide median strip. And I've seen all around town in my neighborhood, other people that are doing like beautification projects, and I'm seeing things get planted. But like my 1 mile stretch, it's just barren. And then across the street from a DISD school, which is just giant and flat, and they're pouring asphalt.
I got two suggestions for you.
Okay.
One is a private organization, and I don't have you can Google it and find it. It's called Texas Trees Foundation.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Contact them. And the other is, since it's a median, and that would be under Public Works and Transportation. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've really dealt with that group that's in the city of Dallas. It's another department in the city of Dallas. I haven't dealt with them lately, so I don't have a name for you, but you can go to their website, and there should be at least a general number to call, and they'll put you in touch with somebody. But they have planners, and if you tell them what you're interested in, they can tell you how to go about working on and trying to get that done. But Texas Trees does a lot with schools. They have several projects going on right now where they're planting trees at schools, and that's a good opportunity.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions?
Kevin, we need to move on.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
If you'll put your email address in the chat, if there's any other questions or issues, perhaps people can connect with you a little later, or check with me. I can share that. Thank you, Kevin. That sounds like an important study for us to be involved in.
I think it's a good project for this group.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Rebecca, are you going to talk to us for a few minutes about regenerative agriculture and Farm Bill lobbying? We've been hearing about the Farm Bill for many, many months. What's going on?
Yes, I will keep this super brief. So you guys know what the Farm Bill is. We've had speakers come. We've been speaking about it. To give you an update, it has the window for comments is officially closed. So the coalition, it represented about 30 chapters, has put all of the information that we've been writing and typing and researching for the last year, that it's made its way into the hands of our Congress people, and that window for time is closed. They're now debating the topics, the specific laws that will go into the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill expires, I think, September 30th. So from here to September 30th, it will be calling Congress people, House and Senate, in the agriculture committees, and making sure that these provisions are included, that our national CRP coalition has taken the time to research and develop. And so that's where I'm coming to ask you guys that this legislative action is, if IRA was the big Goliath of last year's legislation, this one is for this year. I mean, this is really, really important. The Farm Bill affects us all in every single way. And the more calls and comments that we can submit to Congress people to let them know, we only need, I think they said, less than 20. Unfortunately, it's kind of shaping up that it's going to be on party lines. We only need less than 20 Republicans to vote for it. So there's definitely a good chance to get regenerative agriculture practices in there. If you have any questions about what it is, why we want regenerative agriculture, I'm happy to answer that offline. And if you're interested in helping and participating, we would love that. Simon, I'm hoping, has heard back from setting up a meeting with our local representative here in Dallas, who is on the Ag Committee. And we need about 4 to 5 people on that call. So if also something that you're interested in, you can participate, you can watch, just be there for moral confidence and support. That would be really great. Yes, that's what I want to say. And so if you have any questions, if you would like to help, you can find me on Discord or I'll put my email as well. And then I'm also hosting a documentary screening that I just typed that I'll send out to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I see Michael has his hand up, and also Chip was wondering if there's a climate action app related to this.
Thank you, Chip. Yes, there is, absolutely. And there's a lot of actions on Climate Action Now app. So absolutely, that's where you could start today for sure. And then I'll probably be more vocal in the coming weeks, because I'm going to be getting a specific Texas list of people to target. And that's where I would then communicate with the chapter, like, okay, we've got to knock out these 10 people and we need to email them, we need to call them, we need to make sure they understand that this is really important. But absolutely, Climate Action Now app is the first place to start today.
I was going to mention the Climate Action app, but I would add one other thing. There's a campaign tab. If you don't know this, if you hit the campaigns, you can find the Farm Bill action on that. We are also going to send a request out to all of the 5,000 or so registrants we've had to the Climate Boot Camp, ask them to take that action. And Richard, I get a chance, a little plug. We do need some extra help in marketing and accounting if anybody could help with the Climate Boot Camp.
Okay. We're going to do our closing. Thank you, Rebecca. We've got your email there. Thank you for that information. We do need to move on. Monica, you may have had to go back to work. I know you had a question for Robert much earlier, but we may have lost you to the caffeine impaired customers at Starbucks. So I guess we'll have to do that through email. We'll see if Monica comes back here in the next couple of minutes, but Jeffrey, thank you for your patience. Do you have something to say to close us out here?
I do have it's a poem by Will Falk, and it's called Witch Hunters. And I think all you hummingbirds out there, just listen. Earth, mother of all gods and goddesses, knows that just because magic exists, it does not mean magic is infinite, omnipotent, or even independent from the laws of physical existence. She thought every one of her daughters burning at the stake, shrieking for her help, proved this beyond the shadow of a hope, as a global inferno scorched those shadows away. She thought the hurricanes she flung at urban coastal cancers, the earthquakes she conjured to shake her children awake, the squirrel and shark saboteurs she recruited to wage war on energy infrastructure were obvious indictments of blind faith in the false idols, encouraging us to believe that even if we don't make it, the earth will. Time and time again, with each forest lost, each river dammed, each mountain toppled, she has been defeated by the black sorcery of technologic necromancy. Indeed, how could any animal whose lungs she never fails to fill with the constancy of abundant oxygen, whose heart beats in rhythm with her ballads, whose tongue tastes the sweet waters representing her 4 billion year devotion to giving everyone life, conclude anything other than that she has always remained completely faithful to her commitment. No, the earth, the original witch, does not stand idly by while whole species of her descendants are cast into the abyss of oblivion. She would save her daughters if she wasn't already choking on the stench of her own burning flesh, if her bloody wrists weren't already shackled to a hacked down tree they had had to murder to incinerate her. She would if she could, and she can, if only we became brave enough to stand up to the witch hunters. Kind of my mood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, well, we're a little over time. Thank you again to our speakers and contributors. First and foremost, Robert from the Climate Coaching Alliance, and we had Kevin from the city, and Rebecca about the Farm Bill, Simon about Climate Reality's new initiatives. A few of us will stay on for maybe a few minutes, 5 minutes, if there's anything else you want to talk about. But thank you so much for your contributions. Please stay cool in this brutal heat, and we'll be sending some announcements out through Discord and other means. And thank you for your participation today. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.